think, though, on the other hand, you could argue that the neighborhoods are safer for people who...
No, I don't, because then that
Okay.
includes larger policing, larger stop and frisk, larger, and then an unnecessary presence of police that are not for the safety of the black and brown man, but the safety of the white man. So then, therefore, it is backwards, and therefore, it is only trying to supply a safety to the people that have moved in, whose actual safety is at a premium regardless. They have more of a chance of surviving through their day than anybody from the community. So I think that speaks for itself.
Okay. Growing up when you were a teenager, were you mostly, would you say, in the Lower East Side or up in the Bronx?
Both. No. My mother is from Harlem.
Okay.
And my daddy is from the Lower East Side.
Okay.
And I grew up with a lot of people, and I grew up moving around. But I grew up primarily in Harlem, in the Lower East Side, and yes, in the Bronx too, because my dad always lived in the Bronx, and I would go with him on the weekends to live with him. My grandma still lived in the Lower East Side. So I literally, as a teenager, would be on the 6 train, regardless, from the bottom of St. Mark's to the top of Parkchester.
So you're sort of like a woman without a borough, like you.
No, Manhattan is my borough.
Oh, it is?
Yes, very
Okay.
much. I think Manhattan is my borough. I'm a
Okay.
Harlem Lower East Side girl. I'm very Harlem. I'm very, I grew up in Schaumburg Plaza. I'm a big fan, and, I have a large affection for Langston Hughes, for the Harlem Renaissance, from the Harlem Renaissance movement, for Black Pride. I love Arturo Schomburg. So those backgrounds is very much my Harlem. Someone was like, oh, like Dipset, Camera. I was like, oh, yes, but even more. Even more. I'm talking about the 20s and the 30s, and that's my Harlem upbringing. And the Lower East Side, I used to be a little kid going to Tompkins Square Park and going to see How. I'm that New Yorker. I'm there with that.
So what's like the first club you remember going to?
The first club I ever went to was a club called Crash. I was 11 years old. It's a gay club in Queens. My foster mother's cousin brought me there one time. Her brother was the DJ, and her daughter was turning 12. And her brother, which was the DJ, the house DJ at the time, DJ Michael, let the sleepover party go and listen to house music for an hour before opening.
That's
that
impressive.
was the first club I ever went to. Was 11 years old. The second, I think I started hitting the club rave scene though 16 years old. My first raves in New York. But I'd been like kind of going to like rave type parties since I was 13.
All right.
Yeah.
So were you buying music at that point in time?
I was buying music. Talking about buying music, I've been buying music since like the first CD I ever bought was Bewitch, and that's this Irish girl pop band from the 90s. And that was the first CD I ever asked for. And they had river dancing and Celtic music in their pop music. And they used to play it on Disney Channel. And I was really into European pop at the time because I grew up in this really funny liberal home that I had all these different influences, and I liked that. And then I always liked the CDs, but at 16 I wasn't buying music anymore. I was going to concerts still a lot, going to a lot of concerts, going to see a lot of live music.
And so what were some of the concerts you remember sort of that pop out to you?
15, 16, I was like still into hardcore and like industrial music. So I saw Mindless Self-Indulgence at 16, which was this really dope cyber goth group from New York called MSI. And if you're like a goth kid, rave kid, that's your shit. That's what you know about. I saw Jimmy Eat World, 16. Bands like Bless the Fall, bands like my first concert was Kitty. Do you know Kitty? It's an all-girl metal band from Canada. First all-girl band to be on MTV, to play Ozfest. I saw them in 2007. I was 15 years old at BB King's in New York.
That was an impressive band to see, I would imagine.
It
All
was,
girl
it was, and
metal bands.
I liked going to hardcore shows at the time. So I would go see hardcore and like metal bands and rock bands. Then 16, I really got into the Mexican ska scene. So I was going to all of the major large Mexican concerts in New York, and I would see like ska bands like Inspector and Maldita Vecindad and El Panteón Rococó, Molotov, Café Tacuba, Brujeria, things like that. Where I was like really involved in the underground Mexican rock scene in New York. So I was going to like underground rock and roll parties, and that was always this like. And then at the parties, a lot of krautrock was being played, German krautrock, and 80s new wave. So that was like 16. I mean, I was like listening to Joy Division and fucking New Order and the Smiths and all this Mexican rock music that's really popular from the F in Mexico. And that was 16 for me, teenage years.
So you were deeply immersed in some very...
I have real hardcore roots, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Just at that time, as a
No,
teen...
always.
No, when you were a teenager, what was sort of your look stylistically?
My look, it would be like jeans or baggy cargos, pair of dirty Vans,
Okay.
skate shoes always, like pair of Vans or DCs, armbands to hide my cutting, stud belt, 2 of them, you know. I was really Gothic at a point in my life. I'm not anymore, actually, because of my spirituality, my religion. I can't wear black anymore, which is funny because I'm wearing black now, but I have white over it. I can't wear all black like the way I used to. Like, I'll just wearing heavy black, heavy dark colors. I don't dress like that anymore. It's funny. I was like that. I'm like the biggest like fetish dresser. I don't wear that stuff anymore. But that was like, you know, I used to wear like my hair real straight in a ponytail, like straight black hair. Just kind of like, like real that anime kid kind of stuff.
Sure. That sounds like a very cute look.
Very cute look. Little like glasses, like big glasses, big frames. Like a definitely a punk leather jacket with like studs. I'd put it into it myself.
Like a little motorcycle type jacket.
Yeah, like a heavy punk one. Little shirts, lots of piercings, lots of hair coloring, lots of. I always say I started C-punk. Fuck everybody.
All right, so now I'm going to transition into just sort of discussing some of the
I'm going to transition into this joint.
Okay. I could see why every label in the world would want to sign you, for sure. And you could be like, no, I know what I have.
I could sell the hair back to a bald woman. I'm a hustler. I grew up like that.
Right.
So, but I don't use that. I think everything is based on intention. And art is the playing field between angels and demons. And magic is everywhere. And magic is based off the form of intention. And I think all universal law is based off the form of intention. So when I got into music, what was my intention? I got it pretty easy. I mean, I put out a song, it went viral in Europe. I took my last $20 I had and spent it to do the video. I put the video out on my Facebook page to 2,000 friends, and the next day it was on Noisy and Vice. I didn't know anybody in the music industry. I didn't know any journalists or writers. I didn't know that world.
What age were you?
I was 18.
Okay.
I was 18 years old. I didn't know nothing about that world, but I knew art because I grew up with art and I grew up in the art world. But my art, you know, like, and I was like, I was aware that I was aware that music was shifting to the internet, and I was aware that if I was gonna do something, I got to put it out now, and I got to do it like that, and it has to be demographical. But I didn't know that like people were being picked from the internet to like be signed to record labels and things like that. So I didn't know that world, and I thought like, I'm like a poor fucking kid from New York, and I don't really got much going on. Like, maybe this is the way to go. But, you know, and I worked with A&Rs for a little bit, and I was flown out to Europe and stuff like that. And essentially, I just never thought I was good enough, you know, and people say, oh, don't say that. And I say, yeah, doing an album, being signed onto an album, it's a big commitment. And you have to be in a space where you know that you're going to create this project. You know, I didn't create my first project till 2 years later from the time that I put out my first video. 2 years later.
Yeah.
And I managed to stay relevant because I did a lot of DIY mixed punk hip-hop shows in New York. I was a big club kid, and I was getting booked for a lot of that kind of stuff. So I just stopped fucking with that and lived very analog in the nightclub scene, and that was great. And that's why I created Princess Nokia. When I did Princess Nokia, I wanted to do my own new project that was separate from this kind of half hip-hop, half internet artist, Wavy Spice, which is a beautiful beginning. I had to not rebrand, excuse me. I just needed this new idea, this new voice, and Princess Nokia was that.
Right. And that was, when was Princess Nokia born? How old
Princess Nokia was born, I think, 2013.
Okay.
I put out the first song I did as Princess Nokia, which was called Nokia. And I'd met the guy who did the entire Princess Nokia album, the producer, Christopher Lear, which is Owls. I met him in 2013. We put out 2 singles. I'm bugging. Actually, I did put out music. I put out 2 singles. I put out Nokia and Versace Hottie under Wavy Spice. And then after that, I came up with Princess Nokia. We did Dragons. And then in January, I put out the single for Dragons, and then that's when my life changed. And I really had a true new music career. And I had restarted something kind of, so to speak.